Welcome to this edition of The Living Legends. I am Fayaz Qureshi. This is the second part of our conversation with Barrister Sharad Rao. In the first part, he spoke about his time as a defense attorney and a public prosecutor. He quit after he lost a case he was prosecuting and had reservations on the charges. In the second part of this interview, he tells us about the path he took after his resignation. And it all started with working at the US-Iran Claims Tribunal in the Netherlands.
Much lesser. I mean, I had stayed in Netherlands for 12 years, but not all of it was not with the Iran-US Tribunal,
I see.
and I'll tell you why. But the reason I was sent there was that Jonjo, the president was setting up this inquiry against Jonjo, and I was the DPP at the time.
Yeah.
So they had to get me out from that position. So he first removed me from there and put me as chairman of the Business Rent Tribunal.
Yeah.
I was still in contact with Jonjo, and I think the information would get to President Moy. So eventually they decided that I should be sent out from there, and there was an invitation from the Commonwealth Secretariat for Kenya to nominate someone to take up the position in the Netherlands as one of the arbitrators in the Iran-US conflict.
Yes.
So the president called me to State House, and he asked me whether I was prepared to go. So I said, President, you want me to go? I'll go. He said, no. I'm not asking you to go. You've done extremely well in this job. You did very well as DPP. You did extremely well as chairman of the Business Rent Tribunal. You cleared up the entire mess. And now that this offer has come, I want to offer it to you for all that you've done for us. So it's up to you to accept it, because it will be an honor for you, honor for us. So I accepted it, and I went to the Netherlands for that. Yeah.
Interesting. Now let's come back to, you testified at the Jonjo Commission of Inquiry. What is your recollection?
Let me tell you first about the Netherlands. I told you that I would tell you that I did not serve on this commission for the 12 years that I was there. The reason was that after a while, after about 2 or 3 years, the representative of the American embassy turned up to see me. And he sat in front of me and he said to me, Sharad, we want to offer you, what do they call it? State Department. The State Department has asked me to offer you the green card for the United States. So I said, thank you very much, but I have no intention of going to the United States. When I finish this assignment, I go back to Kenya.
Going back to Kenya.
So he said, I am surprised. Everyone before you
would jump for it.
Would wanted this. So I said, maybe, but I don't want to, because I do want to go back.
Yeah.
Then he turned around to me and he said, you know, Sharad, I want to tell you something. The State Department's not happy with you. So I said, a moment ago you were offering me the gold card. Now you're telling me that the State
So they wanted you out of the way.
Is not happy with me. Tell me why. He said, they say you are helping the Iranians. So I said, look, I don't help the Iranians. The Iranian council who comes where the United States is represented by top counsel from states, Iran has only one lawyer. He comes there, he talks to us about what happened when Shah was in charge of Iran, and the atrocities committed and things like that. And I would stop him after an hour or so, and I said, look, you've got half an hour left, can you get on to your case, argue the legal point? And I said, do you call that helping? Because my job here is to go into the law and decide the case as per the law. So he said, no, you don't need to do that, because if he doesn't want to come to the law and he just wants to talk about Iran or something else, let him do it. So I didn't agree. So he told me that, look, your contract will not be renewed. And so it wasn't renewed. All right. So I stayed in Holland despite it.
So you try to be very fair, in other words.
Yeah, I would not accept.
It should be fair across the board for the Iranians and the Americans.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway.
Difficult decisions. You testified at the Jonjo Commission of Inquiry. What is your recollection of the Justice Miller-led commission and the findings?
See, I was in Holland at the time when I was asked by Kireni, who was the head of civil service, whether I would come and testify. And perhaps foolishly I agreed. Others who had been asked said no, but I came. I came to give evidence. And I was met when I came by the council, And I was told that if you cooperate, sky is the limit for you. You can be the Chief Justice, you can be the Attorney General, name it and you will have it.
The carrot was dangled.
Yeah. So I said, by cooperating, you mean I should tell the truth? I will. And the council walked off. So when I appeared before the commission, the issue there was, and the commission was very keen to find something against Jonjo.
Mm-hmm.
And the Muthemba trial figured in it. And the acquittal of Muthemba figured in it. And they alleged that I had lost the case because of a tape recording which I had not produced in court. So I said to the commission, I said, look, that tape recording was inaudible. I had the police investigating officer, brought it to me, played it in my office, and I found that it was totally unacceptable. But they had somewhat of a script. So I said the script I gave to the defense wanted it in, we produced so whatever was on the tape would have been audible, was on that script, and the script was produced in evidence, but not the tape. So they played the tape in, the inquiry was in the Parliament buildings, and it was inaudible. Mm-hmm. But in their report they found that it was audible, and that I deliberately left it out because I wanted to assist Jonjo.
Mm-hmm.
So there it is.
So, well, eventually, obviously, they found him guilty. But he was after a while officially pardoned by the president.
When I left the commission after my inquiry, and they were not happy with him, because I did not concede that Jonjo had any intention other than wanting to become the vice president. Right. I said he certainly was not trying to oust the president. So when I left the Parliament building, I was met by immigration officers who said that they had orders to take away my passport. So I said, okay, you come home, take away my passport. So when I went home, surrendered my passport to them. And for quite a few weeks, I didn't have a passport. I could not go back to the Netherlands. Until someone from Netherlands came and said, look, what's the problem? Our proceedings there are held up because Rao's not coming back. Yeah. So the president's office said, no. We took away his passport because it was a diplomatic passport and he's not longer in the service. So he's not entitled to a diplomatic passport. But if he applies for a local ordinary passport, we'll give it to him and he can go back to the Netherlands.
So you went back on a local passport?
So then I went
on a Kenyan passport, right. Now you chaired, interesting, you chaired the Judges and Magistrates Vetting Board. The board was loved and loathed in equal measure, I must say so. Now, what did you take home at the end of your tenure in the pursuit for a better judiciary in Kenya?
You know, throughout my career, I've had problems, all right? As someone said, I said that it has never been a bed of roses for me because there were people trying to obstruct my progress, obstruct me in my job, etc. But I had fought it through. And there was an article in The Nation on that. And it said, the article, if I recall, I must recall because it's going to be the title of my next book. It said, Jomo to Uhuru, Rao's 9 Lives, written by John Kamau, who is their investigative editor. Right. And that talks about all the problems that I had faced during my career. Right. Yeah. But as I said, in the inquiry, they said that the tape was audible, whereas it was played and it wasn't audible. And they found against Jonjo. In my view, there was not enough evidence as far as that commission was concerned.
So taking back in your role in terms of, chairing the Judges and Magistrates Vetting Board, going back, what did you learn from this whole affair or at the end of your tenure in the pursuit for a better judiciary in Kenya?
Let me tell you how I was appointed. I had gone to Mataiga Golf Club. In the evening, I saw President Kibaki there, and he called me. He said, Sharad, I have an offer for you. So I said, yes. So he said, I want to nominate you for a position. Would you accept? So I said, President, you nominate for, and I cannot say no. So what is it that you're offering? So he said, I want to appoint you as chairman of the Judges and Magistrates Vetting Board. So I said, well, that's an honor. I would be very happy to accept it. But you realize, President, that you need, under the Constitution, you need to consult the Prime Minister, which was Raila Odinga at the time. Mm-hmm. So he said, no, I'll speak to the Prime Minister. But you know and I know it, the consult doesn't mean that he has to agree. I need to talk to him. If he doesn't agree, I'll still go ahead with the appointment. So I wanted yes from you. And I agreed. But for me, I think I heard that even Raila Odinga accepted my nomination as. But there was opposition because the judges were not happy. Because the powers that were given to the commission were very wide. Because once we announced a decision against a particular judge or a particular magistrate, there was no appeal therefrom. We, the judges, resented because it was not under the supervision of the High Court, nor did they have access to the High Court. Mm-hmm. So they were all ganged up against us, and various actions were filed against us. But fortunately, I fought in the High Court, we lost. We fought in the Court of Appeal, we lost. And then eventually the board said, let's give up. I said, no, we're going to go to the Supreme Court. And we had also exhausted the funds by then, but I said, no, I'll go and argue. So I went and argued in the Supreme Court, and we won. So the cases then proceeded, and whereas there were various attempts to sort of obstruct the process, right, we concluded it successfully.
So it did make a huge difference?
Yes, definitely. Overall. About
to the system of judiciary in Kenya?
About 25 to 30% of the judiciary, the judges and magistrates, were removed from office, found unsuitable.
So all the bad apples were out?
Yeah.
So that was basically a success.
Yes,
to a great extent.
It was regarded.
Now, sports. You've had many roles here, and let us start with your involvement with the Commonwealth Games in Kenya and globally. Serving in the Court of Arbitration for Sport as one of the arbitrators for matters presented there and at the Olympic Games. And as an investigator, for World Athletics in cases, I'm putting a lot, but I'm trying to cover all your roles in sports. So, as an investigator for World Athletics in cases involving 3 Kenyan administrators and how this shaped the integrity system for athletics. But if you want to start with the first one, your involvement with the Commonwealth Games in Kenya and globally.
Let me start with that. My first contact with the Olympic movement here was in 1968, when I led the Kenya team, 3-man team, to the Olympic Games in Mexico in 1968. That's how I now got associated. The tennis was an exhibition sport in the 1968 Olympics. And Kenya was one of 8 countries which had been selected. South Africa being ousted, boycotted because of apartheid. Mm-hmm. So we got a chance to put in a team. Right. And 3 of us traveled to Mexico with the Kenyan team. So that's how I became involved with the Kenya National Olympic Committee. Mm-hmm. And I was associated with them right the way through. Then in 1970, I led the badminton team to the Commonwealth Games. That was my first contact now with the Commonwealth Games in 1970. And I had constant continuation with the Commonwealth movement. Then in 1982, I was appointed legal advisor, honorary legal advisor to the Commonwealth Games Federation, right, a post I held for about 30 years, or 40 years. And when I eventually stepped down as legal advisor, I was made, as I now am, honorary life vice president. So that was my involvement as far as the Commonwealth Games Federation was concerned.
So let's go to the next one now. Serving in the Court of Arbitration for Sport as one of the arbitrators for matters presented there and at the Olympics.
Yes, the Court of Arbitration was set up in 1984. And I was on the panel right from the beginning of that one. And the role of the Court of Arbitration for Sport at that time was to have an ad hoc court of arbitration at every Olympic Games. So to start with, Atlanta was my first one, where I was a reserve on the panel of judges for Atlanta. I never sat because I wasn't called up. But after Atlanta, I served as a judge of the Court of Arbitration in the Olympic Games in Athens, then in the Olympic Games in Beijing, then in the Olympic Games in London. So 3 Olympic Games I served as a judge of the court.
That's amazing and extremely honorable, I must say.
So I did a number of those and a number of arbitrations also for the Court of Arbitration.
You are an extremely amazing, prolific career, legally, professionally, I mean, in terms also of sports. Your contribution has been immense.
So in that capacity, not in that capacity, but because of that background, I was asked by the International Athletic Federation to investigate 3 of their top officials here for corruption, which I did,
yes.
and found them guilty, and they were sanctioned by the international. And I also acted on a number of international disputes for the International Cricket Council, including 3 Pakistani cricketers who were charged, who were allegedly for what is called fixed. Yeah, so I was one of the judges on that panel. Yeah.
Being this investigator for World Athletics, how did this shape the integrity system for athletics? And you also obviously found 3 Kenyans were charged for it as well.
These were the 3 top Kenyan officials of the administrators. Yeah. Whether that made any impact afterwards, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But by and large, I think the body is fairly clean now. Mm-hmm. It wasn't then, and there were various complaints against them. So that it reached the International Federation, and they appointed me to actually go investigate, and I found them guilty, 3 of them. Yeah.
Major steps have been taken, and I think there is an improvement overall in the system.
In the system, yes, but as far as doping is concerned, no. I think we still have an issue as far as doping is concerned. Yeah.
That's extremely sad. We never ever had doping as an issue.
No,
in the 70s and 80s.
regarded the Kenya team as one of the cleanest teams in the Olympics, yes, or in any international.
Right. They were known for that.
Yeah, it's only recently that cases have come up of doping, and I think if measures are not taken, that could turn into quite a serious issue.
It could get worse.
Yeah.
It needs to be addressed. Now, let's talk about your book, The Dukawalas. And there's a little story behind it. Tell us more.
I undertook the book to sort of record the contribution of the Indians to Kenya's economic and political development. Because it was the Indians who built the railway. And as one of the governors had put it, the railway is the history of Kenya. The beginning of the railway is the history of Kenya. So that the Indians were involved right through building the railway, and along the railway line they set up little kiosks, which were later called dukas. Mm-hmm. Duka is a word from the Indian word dukan.
Right.
So that the British, in derogatory terms, referred to the Indians as the Dukawalas. So my book actually looks at Dukawalas, their contribution to Kenya's political and economic development. And it has been received extremely well. I had it launched, if I call it a launch. The first copy of that book was given to Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, mm-hmm, when he came on an official visit to Kenya. I think it was July 2015. Mm-hmm. I told the High Commissioner of India at the time, I said I wanted to give it as a present to him, so for him to know what the history of Indians in Kenya was. And she said that they would not accept a gift. So I said, it's not meant to be a gift, it's just a history of the Indians in Kenya. So when they said no, I took the book to State House. There was a reception for the President, for the Prime Minister, by President Uhuru, and I was one of the guests. So I took 2 copies to State House. And at State House, I was seated next to, in the front row, and next to me was on the next table was the Cabinet Secretary. So I went to see him and I said, look, I have this book which I want to present to the President, to the Prime Minister, and to the President. Can you check with the President Uhuru? So he went over, he spoke to the President, and President did this to me, bring it. I didn't have the book on me, it was with the security fellow outside. So he went and he got it, the Cabinet Secretary, and as he got it and he said to me, he said, look, rather than just present it, I will officially call upon you to say something about the book. So I said, fine. So he went and announced that I had written this book specially for Modi's visit, which wasn't so, but anyway, right, that's what he said. And I was invited to speak. So I spoke for about 3 minutes, telling them exactly that the Indians came here, they built the railways, right, they set up the dukas, etc., etc. And then the President, when he was replying to welcoming the Prime Minister,
Prime Minister
as if he had read the book. Well, that is what he knew, or that's what he had read about
so
before.
he referred to you constantly, as Sharad says.
But he kept on referring to it. He says, as Sharad says, the Indians came here in 1895.
Yes.
As Sharad says, they built the railway. As Sharad says, they completed the work in 1898.
That was a great launch for your book. It worked out really well.
So it was launched.
Now, a word of advice to the young people across the world.
Well, who am I to advise the young people? Except that when you are
a man of relevant experience.
No, when you are in sport,
could give some inspiring words to our young generation.
When you are in sport, you should be a sportsman, and win or lose, you should act as a sportsman. So this thing of taking drugs to enhance your performance, etc., should not be taken at all. So you should not be tempted into that. And the consequences also, if you're found out, and the tests are so rigid that you're getting away with it, are very slim. So as far as possible, I think my first advice would be don't go.
Your career is over, basically.
Yeah. Secondly, if you want to succeed, you've got to work. You've got to work very hard. You've got to work very disciplined as far as your habits are concerned, getting up, doing the exercise, what food you take, what you don't food. Even if you take Coca-Cola, for instance, all right, you've got to check whether that contains any forbidden stuff, because some ingredient there may be on the prohibited list. So you've got to be extremely careful. If you do that, then only you can succeed as a sportsman.
Thank you very much, Sharad.
Thank you.
It's been great having you as a guest on The Living Legends.
Thank you very much.
Asante sana.
Thanks.
It has been an extreme pleasure speaking to Sharad Rao on his life in private and public service, his meetings with Kenyan presidents, and how each had a different style of addressing the matters that they thought should be prosecuted, and how he dealt with the small claims from an Iran-USA dispute for 16 years. In sport, he has been an arbitrator and investigator for the Commonwealth Games Federation, the International Olympic Committee, and World Athletics. We thank Barrister Sharad Rao for giving us his time. Thank you for watching. I'm Fayaz Qureshi.